Yo guys, what is good? I hope you're all doing absolutely amazing and are trading safely in the markets. It's your boy VGOK and I'm back with another video for you guys today. Now in this video I'm going to be looking at over the indices and the Forex pairs that I like to look at, pretty much a market outlook, and I'm also going to be having a look over the news as well. Now I appreciate that you guys would have found this video a bit more useful had I have released it on Sunday. However, I've reserved that privilege for those of you that are in my private mentorship who get to see it live at the time of the recording. Now obviously if that's something that interests you and you're wanting to know more about that, then do drop me a message on my Instagram. The link to my Instagram is going to be in the description below, and just drop me a message saying mentorship and we can discuss things further. But with that all being said, let's jump straight into the market outlook. Let's start off this market outlook. First of all, let's go over the news for the coming week. So yeah, setting up to this week, we've got, upon first glance, I think the main days that we're going to be looking into trading is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Just looking at the news itself, on Tuesday we've got the PPI news for the US dollar coming out. That's at 1:30 p.m. So bang in the middle of our trading session time. And then similarly on Wednesday we've got US dollar news again for the core retail sales, CAD CPI as well if you trade the CAD, and we've also got GBP CPI news coming out at 7 a.m. on Wednesday as well, so that'll be looking good. And Thursday 1:30 p.m. we've got this US dollar news, the Philly Fed manufacturing index. So some really nice key sort of news events coming up for this week, mainly on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's a good thing to actually get into a habit of looking into the news a lot more. Just identifying, not even if you don't exactly know how it's going to be affecting the markets, just sort of keeping it in the back of your mind or noting it down somewhere when what times of the week, what days specifically are going to be seeing more volatility in the markets. As you can see from last week, the main news we had was last Thursday, and it was that CPI news on Thursday. And if I go back to say Eurusd's chart last week on the Thursday, if I put the kill zones back on and then go to Thursday's move, we can see exactly at 1:30 p.m. we saw the type of move that happened. So obviously this being Friday, and then Thursday, if we zoom in and look in more detail at the exact time of when it came in, we saw the volatility at 1:30 exactly. We saw this big shoot up of price here. So yeah, it's a very important thing to look into the news every week before you get started, just so we know which days to really target and be on the ball with. But yeah, coming into next week, definitely Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are going to be the main days that we look to sort of target for our trades for next week. And the majority of the news that I like to look at is mainly going to be US dollar news, pound news on occasion, but that would usually be around London session for the pound news. So yeah, that looks pretty good for the news on for this next week. But starting off with the analysis, let's jump to current price, and I'm going to start off with EURUSD. So just taking the kill zones off for a sec, and let's change it back to the weekly time frame because we've had some crazy movement in this past week. So it's definitely going to be asking for some more detailed analysis, I should say. So yeah, looking into EURUSD, as we can see from the previous week's price action, super bullish, bullish price action in that week's candle, and then altering it down to the daily time frame, we can see that it was trying to reject into this candle here, didn't quite do it. As you can see, it's extended its way up deep into the candle, so chances are I think it's going to be looking to take out this high, but then potentially we can see if it will get a reaction in this drop scenario over here, which took out this previous area of demand over here and in here as well. So this area is looking more and more likely, which is why I've extended it across over here. So I'm just going to label that on as the daily supply level, just so we know exactly what time frame it's referring to. So daily supply, so that looks pretty good. And I think at this moment right now we can invalidate that zone because it's gone so deep into the zone, and I don't see it really rejecting from there. But now we've got the main supply zone that we're interested in, so I'm just going to set an alert just below it, right in there. And we should start looking into the demand side of things as well. So just going to go naturally down the time frames. So checking into the 8 hour, and there's some analysis in here which I want to get rid of. Pretty much all of this, I think. Old stuff from here down. So let's get rid of that. Obviously let's get rid of that one. It's not relevant. This one we'll have another look into later on. And there's another demand zone in here which I've got marked on as well. So let's get rid of all of that, and then in the 8 hour time frame here I've written down 4 hour demand, as we'll probably be able to see a nice sell to buy candle in there on the 4 hour. And when we take a look there, we can see a really nice manipulation sort of candle in there, institutional candle, order block, whatever you want to call it, same thing. But that nice sell to buy candle in there. So the first sort of demand zone it could potentially reach is going to be there. And also just want to have a look into this area as well, see if that's a rally based rally that's taken out anything significant on our left here in terms of supply. Looking back here, we can see this area here created this next lower low, so it is very key zone for this supply, and it's about what takes that out. And as we zoom into this area here, we can see there's definitely a manipulation of price happening in this here. You can see it's gone up, it's stalled for a bit, and then it's continued on its way up, so it's like that rally based rally formation. In terms of what time frame it would be looking on, I'm just going to go back to the 4 hour. Let's go back to the 8 hour actually, just so I can mark on where the top of that supply is, and we can really figure out what's taken out that area on these lower time frames. So back to the 4 hour and to the 1 hour as well. Let's see, so price went higher in there. I think this whole area, I think if we just treat it as a 4 hour rally based rally, we should be good. So I'm going to include it from here upwards. We've got a nice imbalance in there on the 4 hour as well. So I think if we label that 4 hour rally based rally demand, and obviously labeling it as the demand in there as well. Like that. Whoa, don't want to move that. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. In terms of demand, probably keep this alert up here, so we obviously this one's going to be met first if it does decide to retrace down, and then we can sort of analyze within this zone if we'll get an accumulation forming. But that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think we'll keep that there. I'll probably set one more alert here for EU as well, just to be prepared. And in terms of that, I think that looks pretty good. We can look to play within these zones, for this week, I think. But yeah, keeping in mind we may not get as many big moves tomorrow, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with those news events, we should be good to go. So yeah, moving on to, might as well do DXY next as well, seeing as we've done EU. And as you can see, it's a carbon copy opposite of Eurusd. So just changing it to the weekly time frame. And obviously what we can see from here, this monthly area which we've had marked up for so long now, it did meet it, and then it's decided to drop down successfully. So definitely, think about retracements up and then continuations down. That would make sense. On the monthly time frame, the daily and the weekly, we can see exactly what it's decided to react into. It's pretty much invalidated this demand zone in here, but it's still within this general area here. So I want to see a nicer sort of candle to base that on, and on the 3-day time frame we can see it nicely makes up this sell to buy region in there. So obviously this is an old zone that's already been met in there, and I just want to mark on another demand zone. So yeah, gonna use this 3-day sort of candlestick in here up to the imbalance fill, which is pretty much inside of right now in terms of the zone. So I'm just gonna label that on as well. So 3-day demand zone. So that looks good. And then as we go down into lower time frames, we can see if it's deciding it wants to slow down. I'm going to put some more lines in here for those optimum, mitigations. but for now let's just keep going on down the time frame, seeing what we can actually get in this region. That looks good. Let's look at the 8-hour time frame. Yeah, the main manipulation is in this sell down here, as it takes out these lows in there, and then obviously you get the sharp movement to the upside as well. So it's definitely worth having a line on the open of that selling off there, which pretty much is just about tapped on that Friday close candle in there. So, and then as we look into the 4-hour time frame, we can see there are some imbalances that have not been filled in within this area here. So we can see there's an imbalance in here that's not been filled in. We definitely want to have a look into that as well. So, you know, there's this area here, and there is another area in here as well, like so. So a couple different mitigations that could happen in there. It's currently just about tapped off this first one, so we're going to see obviously how these reactions start to come about. Are we going to be getting that accumulation in this demand zone? So we'll look into that as well. I'm just going to delete all of this old analysis since we won't be needing that. And in terms of the sort of lower time frame supply zones we've got in here, looks good as well. Obviously in this region here we have this base drop in here, supply zone, so that base drop that takes out this previous demand which shot price up there. We can see price mitigated it nicely with a nice buy to sell candle and then drop. So that 4-hour buy to sell candle in there looks very nice in terms of a selling you know, scenario. So if we mark that one on as well and keep that in mind, and I think if we could probably move this this alert over here just so we know when it gets close. So let's set an alert just underneath this zone in here, and we want one down here as well, and we're going to label this as that 4-hour supply. So that looks pretty good for DXY. If we can get into this area and then potentially see a distro, and then where it is now, if we can start to see accumulation, that'll be good. So potentially bullish dollar to start with for the week, and that means we should see a selling off for Euro USD, and it's looking good because it's quite close to that daily supply zone up here as well. So we'll see if we can get distribution in there to sell down, multiple targets to take profit in as well. So yeah, we'll be interested in that for DXY as well. But yeah, moving on to NZD USD, and again we can see how aggressively price has decided to move upwards in this region here. It has got into this I believe it's an 8-hour zone, 8-hour or 4-hour, I think probably a 4-hour. Let's quickly check that. Yeah, so that 4-hour zone there, we can definitely see within here, you know, whether it's this rally base drop or whether it's that buy to sell region in there, but we can definitely see the manipulation within this wick. We can see there's definitely some sort of lower time frame trend line going down like that, and then we had this manipulative wick, buy to sell sort of wick in there, manipulating price and then shooting lower. So definitely want to see what happens in that region there. And similarly, you know, we've got price just entering that zone on Friday close. So it'll be interesting to see how market opens later on tonight, see if we can get respect of this zone, whether we get more consolidation, and then New York session tomorrow, maybe we start to get those manipulations for that distribution style of move to the downside. Upon further inspection, lower time frames in this region, we can see that it's kind of already reacting into this base drop area here. It's kind of tapped into there and started to slowly move down, but we'll see if that's actually relevant and valid. So you can see in this region here, you know, we've had that base drop, but also we have to contend with this region here as well for the buys, because I think we may be getting some sort of small reaction happening very soon on that. As you can see, we've got wick rejections just above that little zone in there, so it'll be interesting to see whether it will reject up, come back up into here, maybe take out some of these highs, get deeper into this zone and sell off, or if it wants to make a new higher high and then, you know, start to consolidate and maybe distribute. That would be good to see on NZD USD. But for now that looks pretty good, and we'll just sort of assess it accordingly. We were looking for buys in here on Friday, but didn't quite get into any, so I was looking at some other pairs. But yeah, that looks good for NZD USD right now. Moving on to pound against the dollar, so GU, and moving to the daily time frame, we can see exactly what zone we're looking to play into. We've got this buy to sell on the daily and the 4-hour probably as well. If I scroll over to the 4-hour time frame in here, we can see we've got a clean trend line build up over here, and then this is that manipulation, that buy to sell manipulation of that trend line liquidity sitting in there. So just looking at how price is going to be reacting into that area. When market opens, it'll be interesting to see, will we gap down from this area, from this supply zone, because we're in the supply zone already. Are we going to be gapping down, or are we going to be gapping up and going through it, showing that we actually want to be looking to continue higher for GU. But yeah, looking on smaller time frames right now, as soon as it's tapped this area, it looks like a kind of a small distribution schematic forming in this region here. But as you can see, we're getting a wick rejection in here, so maybe it wants to gap higher, reacting into this rally-based rally region over here potentially. It's all about what happens on market open, really. I think that's the best way to go about this. But it is in the supply zone, so definitely we're going to be having a look into what exactly happens with this pair. But for now, obviously, there is maybe some equal highs resting in this region, so maybe he wants to take those out. Retrace deeper into this imbalanced region here. We've got a nice buy to sell on the 3-minute in there as well, so maybe he wants to get into there and then drop down. So we'll see exactly what happens with that. But yeah, that looks pretty good for GU at the moment as well. Moving on to Gbpjpy. We had a nice sell-off from this region here on Friday. I actually got into some sells over here, but I did break them even stupidly. So that was my issue last week, breaking even, winning trades. But yeah, we did get into a nice sell there, and it did go down to a max about 1-7 or 1-8, so that was pretty good. But upon looking at it again right now, it has come back up into that region, so I'm unsure whether the demand is still going to be holding if we change it to the 4-hour time frame and see exactly what this area is based on. As we can see in here, we've got a nice rally situation happening within here that takes out all of this previous supply. Now, whether it wants to reject in this region here, come back into the region, maybe make a new lower low and then manipulate and then go higher, we're going to have to sort of assess those things and see how they sort of come about. But at the moment, what we can see from that region, the reaction that we've got in this black candle here, we can actually see a sharp movement upwards, showing us that there was a nice successful rejection in there with that bottom side wick. And we do have an engulfing candle on as that the most recent 4-hour candle to be sort of created. So let's see, we might gap up, we may sort of come back in for a retracement, liquidate some of these lows and then go up. So definitely want to see how that sort of forms as market opens later on. But for the moment, I think there's something else just to see, is potentially a trend line forming up here. Yeah, that looks pretty good in terms of the trend line formation there. So liquidity forming in there, potentially wants to get maybe a bit higher up into this supply zone and then it's ready to drop off. But theoretically we should be looking to drop off, pretty much from where it is. So keep an eye out for some potential sells. Yeah, I think that looks good at the moment for Gbpjpy as well. And then obviously the demand side of things, we'll have to wait and see if it gets back into this zone and see how it reacts to that area. Moving on to AUD USD, I believe it's probably going to be very similar to NZD USD, but again, daily time frame, as we can see, is coming up very aggressively, and the most obvious higher time frame supply I can see is in this candle here, this buy to sell candle, really strong imbalance created after that order block as well, so it's a good sign. So just going to be labeling the daily supply zone on there. So that looks pretty good. So as price gets higher and higher into there, we're going to see what happens. But I do want to see what happens on the demand side of things, because we do have successful bullish order flow as well starting to form. As you can see, the most recent obviously shoot up was from this region here for AU. That was from last Thursday's price action there. But in terms of where we can sort of continue from, obviously this imbalance fill is going to be the main one to think about in terms of the next bullish zone. On the higher time frames or lower time frames, we're going to have another look at as well right now, so keeping that alert there, that looks pretty good. and then jumping down into the 15-minute and below, we can see obviously successful mitigation, new higher high, but this did drop down into here, challenging this, basically, mitigating this demand zone once more. And then it does obviously look to continue to trade higher after that as well. So I think the next nice area for demand, obviously on the 3-minute time frame now, so quite low on the time frame, is going to be in here. We can see a nice little imbalance for that's not been filled in there, and we do have a nice sell to buy candle in there to look to potentially play off of. So I'll be looking for a reaction in that zone there. In terms of the first demand zone, depends obviously how market opens, whether we get gaps or any sort of volatility on the open. So that looks pretty good in terms of the demand zone for AU. Potentially even coming deeper into this region, maybe getting back into this region as well here. But obviously we'll assess that if that happens. But yeah, for AU, not too much analysis, but it looks pretty good for now, what I've got on there. Let's move on to US dollar JPY as well. Again, after seeing the dollar's value drop so much on Thursday, we can see how that's been reciprocated on UJ. As you guys can probably see right in there, we did get into that monthly zone right in there, so that buy to sell on the monthly, that's what we're looking into. As it approaching there, we've got a really nice bearish engulfing candle forming at the moment, so whether we get a retracement back up into this area to then get further sells off, that would be really nice to see, and that's what I'm probably going to be looking for in terms of UJ. So not looking to really rush the entry too much on that, because I know we're going to be getting a huge sell if we can just be patient with the entry and sort of take our time with it. So let's hopefully see that work out nicely. But I'm just going to delete all this previous analysis, just so we can have a fresh chart, and let's get rid of that. Just back to the daily time frame now. I think this area has definitely got to be monitored over here, and if we look to mark on that supply, where is it gone? So yeah, this supply zone over here, we've got a nice base drop formation in here to look at and think about. Obviously you can see the drop, these couple candles in here acting as the base, and then the further drop off over here taking out this previous demand, push price higher, demand, push price higher, and then all of obviously these little demands in here which push price over there. So definitely want to be having a look into there for UJ for sells. As you can see, that's pretty much the imbalance fill area of last Thursday's drop. And if that fails, then there is one more zone up here which still hasn't been mitigated, so that could be the extreme sort of mitigation for the sells up there, so which is why I've got the alerts out there. So on the bearish side, everything looks pretty nice. We know which areas to sort of target in, but yeah, in terms of the bullish side of things, to look to potentially take some more buys on this if the dollar does decide to gain strength. First area to look at, I would have to be in this region here, which is probably already in. Yes, it's just about already in that zone there. So that would be one demand zone to think about. And I think even if I go to the weekly time frame, it'll probably be a nicer area. Yeah, so the weekly time frame, we can see this rally base rally formation in there. So maybe on the weekly it wants to mitigate into there. So I'm just going to put a line here just because it looks like such a nice mitigation. Looking at again on the daily, where does that look into? And the daily, you can see it's in that imbalance filled region in here, which looks pretty nice. So I'm going to keep that just sitting like that. Whether we get a mitigation of this area, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, failing that, then there is this sell to buy region in there as well. As we go into lower time frames and see exactly which is the correct region to concentrate on in this area, we can see that looks good. It could just be where it takes out this blue zone, just about gets into this area here, and then decides to shoot up. So it'll look like a manipulation of this zone, and then a sharp movement up. That could be good as well. So probably just not going to set an alert there, but I'll be setting a horizontal line just so we know it could be a mitigation into that region. Yeah, that looks pretty good for UJ. So we'll keep that like that. Let's end things off by looking at the three indices. So starting off with US30, It has been, I'm going to say the same thing every week about this, you know, for the past couple videos, past couple market outlooks. It's been hard to get in on indice buys. As you can see, these previous demand zones, they just haven't been met, and then also in here I've been fairly unlucky to not being able to catch an entry. You know, in these demand zones it's not been met, this one here hasn't been met, so it has been slightly difficult, but we'll do analysis on it nonetheless. In terms of, okay, it's actually got back up to this 3-day supply, which I had marked up for a while now, so maybe also get slightly deeper into that region, get into this buy to sell imbalance filled region over here. That I could definitely see happening. So for it to remain bearish, you know, maybe taking out liquidity above this high, getting into a key area and then dropping down, maybe see a distribution again in this area. So for supply we could definitely look in there. And then in terms of demand, if we look into the 8-hour to start with, it's got to be something in this from this lower high to this this higher low to this higher high, just based on a structure perspective. And as we look into it on lower time frames, I think the best thing to be looking at is going to be some sort of manipulation within here. As we can see, nice supply in here which kept getting respected, and then we had the manipulation down in that wick, big movement up. So definitely something in there to look at, and I think I'm just going to draw it on the 30-minute time frame in here, just from the bottom of that wick to this area here, for that main demand zone. If we can get price coming into here and then continuing upwards, that should be good to see as well. So for our demand zone, that looks pretty nice. We also have started to react into this, so I do want to sort of keep an eye on this and see if this holds for US30. Looks like a nice reaction away from demand, and the only area not filled in upon this movement upwards is going to have to be somewhere in here. Conveniently, it's the start of this big sell down here before it shoots off, so probably we'll look to mark up all of this in here for that next zone, and you know, setting an alert in here, as this is going to be that closest demand zone to where we are. And then on the flip side, obviously the supply side, if it does react earlier than that higher zone that we're looking at, then I think I would be looking something in here for supply, just so that we have two zones to potentially play in between. And as you can see, just below that zone, it's already given a nice rejection down, quite a strong rejection down. So whether it wants to come back up, take out liquidity above this previous high, close within the zone and then drop, you know, that we've seen that happen so many times now. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get that sort of scenario as well for US30. Now let's see if Nasdaq is any similar. So going back to the daily time frame, the Nasdaq actually looks a bit more bullish in terms of this sell to buy region here mainly. So I'm actually just going to take all the drawings off this chart here so we can have a clean look at it. Obviously the daily demand zone is what I'm going to be marking up first in here. So if price can get into here and then we see an accumulation start to form within there, that'll be good. In terms of the supply side, I think where we are now looks good for the supply side as well. So just looking into this region here, as you can see, the imbalance fill on the daily there has already been fulfilled. So looking into there, we've got a nice, obviously that drop, base drop, and it takes out, this is that first key one because this starts to create those higher highs in there and there. So potentially something in there, and failing that, then you know we've got a couple other ones to look at, but I'm not going to mark them all on just yet. But those areas there look good for the higher time frame supply and demand. In terms of lower time frame ones, let's have a quick look to see if there's any quick scalp sort of POIs for us. Nothing as of yet, maybe something in this region here. So if it does decide to retrace in here and gives bullish you know, reactions, bullish breaks of structure on smaller time frames, then maybe worth going for an accumulation style of trade for buys further up. So that'll be another area to sort of look into. But the main thing to understand is we are in this demand zone now. So if you go back to the daily time frame, we are actually within the demand zone. So the logical thing to be thinking about is, are we going to be seeing a distribution in this area to get that sell down, and then you know, first TP in the imbalance fill, next TP at the structural low here. That looks pretty good. So that's the main thing I'm going to be thinking of for Nasdaq. As we see, it has given this big drop off here, which could be that break of structure. It did come back up into here, quite high up, so let's see whether it will do one more liquidity capture and then a shoot down. I think it might do. It probably will do that, so we'll see if that happens on market open as well. But yeah, that looks pretty good for NAS. And then let's have a look at the S&P as well. So looking at the S&P, I think this looks more closely to Nasdaq. As you can see, the main time frame, the main of this demand zone, I think it is the weekly time frame. So let's have another look into there. Yeah, this weekly time frame, as you can see, this sell to buy candle on the weekly here. Price has tapped into that region quite nicely and decided to, go bullish. And as we go into lower time frames, daily and 4 hour, we've got other zones of interest as well now to think about. So just going to clean up the chart a little bit here. All of that needs to go, and then the main demand zone, I think on the daily time frame for all these indices is pretty much the same one. It's that the most recent daily sell to buy, which on SPX is there. So definitely want to be having a look into that region. I'm going to borrow this alert here so we know when the price gets there. But yeah, that looks pretty nice, that looks good. So let's see what will happen there for that. In terms of the sells down, what else can we see? So we had nice liquidity capture above these equal highs. Liquidity capture, sell down, this drop, base drop, price is mitigated there, so potentially the one after that should be good, I think, in terms of supply. If it wants to see a reaction, it will be ideally in here, I think, on the daily. So have another look into that on lower time frames as well. Let's check the 8 hour out for that area. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Definitely a manipulation move in there, as you can tell with the sharp buy and then the sharp drop down. So that looks pretty nice. Definitely want to see what happens when price enters this region as well for the sells. In terms of anything in between, I probably won't look to trade in between any of those zones, just because I don't really trade SPX too often, so still back testing, convincing myself on it as well. But in terms of higher time frame zones, they look good for SPX, in those regions there. So there we have that full breakdowns of the pairs and indices that I'm looking at for this week. And I'll say it again, if you're someone that wants to actually start benefiting from these sorts of calls, along with live trading calls before they're actually released on YouTube, then you know the drill. Please do just drop me a message on my Instagram saying mentorship, and we'll discuss things further. But with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video and found value, then please do give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video for more of that trading source.